G'day, this is Hugo from Microchannel and welcome to today's session. I'll take you through our advanced workflow application. Now on the agenda today, we'll go through our user matrix. This is where we set up the workflow and the delegations. I'll also show you your substitute approvers, so if someone's away, we can substitute them out. Go through our email template, so for each of the steps in the process, we do have the ability to send that notification through as well. There's a couple of things from a permission point of view that we can allow the user to see within advanced workflow. And then we'll get into the processing side. We'll capture a normal invoice in Intacct, send it through the process, and get the document approved. Afterwards, I'll also show you the emails that come through and a bit of the approval history as well. When we log into advanced workflow, it is just your normal Intacct user details. So once it's been configured and linked to your Intacct session, you can use those details, log onto the application. And then based on the user rights that we assign, you'll get a different view on the left side there. So you can see there's quite a few options on this one. I've got the matrix master, those substitutes, the approval process itself, and then anything that's still in the process, and some of the histories, which we'll go through a bit later as well as that email template. The first one I want to touch on is this premium, the matrix itself. So from this user matrix, we can set up a new one or use the existing one and just update it as well. So within this, we've got the ability to set up multiple rules and different ways of this transaction to flow through the workflow process. In this case, we can have multiple locations or entities that you can set up, multiple departments, multiple projects. And then we also have that amount delegation. So you could have multiple lines. If it's below a certain amount, go to user A. If it's above that amount, go to user A and user B, for instance. So the number of approvers allow up to 4 there, but we can also restrict this to say, even though we specify 4 users, we need 2 signatures. So only 2 of those 4 approvers need to sign this document for it to be approved. So depending on those options, you can set that up. If any of our users are away during a specific time, we can set up substitutes for them. So in this case, we can say who's the approver. So it might be me, and Emma can substitute me, and that's for somewhere in August. I'll be away, and we can save that. They'll come down, and it will update the section below. So this grid there, and you can see I can still at this stage, because it's in the future, I can still edit or remove this. But things that's already happened, that forms part of our audit history, so we can't change that anymore. That's basically what happened. So in that case, I'll remove that one, and it'll still be reverted back to the initial one. Now the last little setup section there is just on the email templates. So looking at these, we can set up templates for different transactions. So I've got AP in there. We've got purchase requisition, purchase orders, purchase invoices. So depending on your workflow within Intacct, we can cater for that. And then looking at the template types for each of those steps of the workflow, we can trigger an email as well. So if we want to do that first approval on the AP invoice, there'll be some SMTP settings, but effectively we can build that section. So the body and the message that we send out, what are we going to send out? So initially we can say hi, and we can pick up fields from Intacct as well. So, we know who this document is going to, so we want that receiver name in there. Please approve the invoice, and we can pick up the invoice number, for instance. And so depending on what you want in there, you can populate that message and then have that ready. So anything that's already configured is down here, and we can modify or remove it if we don't need that anymore. So from that perspective, we'll move into Intacct and just have a quick look at the user and the profiles that we can set up there. So on the user, if we look at that Emma user that I've been using, you'll notice that all of those options are selected. So depending on what you want to allow that user to do within advanced workflow, you can select specific privileges. So we want to view every document, not just associated to us. I want to view approval history for all the modules. They'll be able to do approvals within those modules. Can they access those master data as well? So, depending on each section, you can set that up. we'll just jump into the processing side of things. So within Intacct, we'll do a normal supplier invoice at this stage, and that will then trigger off the workflow, and we'll follow that through. So I'll select the supplier there, enter my document number. So once we've entered that number, you can also do your normal attachment. So bring in that attachment, drag and drop, and then we can continue the document. So I'll populate the other required fields and get processing. Now, one thing that we've added there, send for approval. So that's the key that will send that to our advanced workflow. We'll enter an amount there. I'll enter that sales department and the location. Now, if we do post at this stage, it will prevent us. So we've got controls here that the user can't post it. We'll draft this, and within that draft process, it gives us the ability to then send that for approval. Now, depending on the workflow rule and where it's supposed to go, that will then hit the workflow, and the appropriate user will get that notification as well. So in my case, it went to Nikki, according to my rules. So I'll log in as Nikki, and we'll approve that document or view that document. Now, when Nikki logs in, the user rights for Nikki is a bit different than the MI user. So you'll notice on the left-hand side, there's a lot less options within Advanced Workflow, and the default screen that loads up is that approval. So by default, we can see the approvals and we can get going on that. We can obviously, I'll talk about the history a bit later, but that's effectively all that Nikki can do. So from this perspective, they can see all the details that's been captured on that line. We do have that ability to bring through additional information, so you can see all the details from that invoice and a link through to the attachments as well. If there were multiple lines on this document, so it went to different departments as well, they'll have visibility of that, even though they're approving only their line that's related to their department or their delegation. If they need to decline it, we send it back to Intacct, tell that receiver that they need to modify the document or change the amount or change the coding, for instance, and they can then resubmit. In this case, if we're okay with this, we'll send it on and approve that document. Now, when we had this initially, remember I put this in draft mode. So with this, when we approve a document and it's fully approved, depending on the number of steps that's involved, this will get updated. So if I refresh my screen on this side, this document will be updated and it should be posted, and that's now posted. So it's within accounts payable and we can continue on that one. Now, so from a processing point of view, any document that we send through, it'll look up the rules, find the appropriate one, and then action accordingly. And some of those actions, as I mentioned, comes via emails. So if we check one of those emails, there's one that came through. So that document submitted into workflow, it's for who it is, the amount, and the document number. And they also have a return link, so they can physically go into the advanced workflow and then action the document. Now, looking at the rest of the process, we also have this approval history. So if you open up that approval history, it gives you the ability to look at the history, obviously, but you've got some filters that you can apply. So just for a specific supplier, just for a specific invoice, if you're looking for something, put that in, you can filter it, but effectively it gives you all the details. So the document number, the supplier, the amount, and then where it was coded to, what the status is, if it's approved or still in the approval process, and then if it was approved, when it was approved or declined, the comments and who it was. So all those details available from a user perspective, so it gives us that ability to just round this up and complete the process. Thank you for watching. See you next time.